Okay, we're going to call the regular selectmen's meeting to order here at 3 o'clock, and privilege of the floor. But without the cover of the planning board, I don't think he's willing to. I think his concern, and I'm just reading this into this to some extent, is that if he presents this at a meeting, he's going to get a million questions, which is, when are you going to do this? When is the mountain going to fix their stuff? Of which he really doesn't want to launch into. And I think it's probably more for that reason than anything that he decided that they weren't going to do it.
Okay.
He then suggested that I call, which I did do, this other guy from the SE group, and talk over with him of what we're at, where we're at, and what to do. And the guy, Tom Kane, I think is his name.
Mark Kane.
Mark Kane from the SE group. I spoke to Mark. Mark's suggestion was that we don't try to tie the transportation study to that particular plan, but to really just take what we have in our own. He said he read our master plan. He said, just take what you have in your master plan and use that as the basis of providing a rationale, because the master plan essentially anticipates to some extent the development of the remaining core area in the center of town. The zoning is already set up that way. He said, and he would use that as the basis of trying to explain how to go about doing this. So with that thought in mind, if I can find it, actually, and he would suggest that he would come down the day of the town meeting. He'd be there while the voting period is open. They would be prepared for anybody that wants to listen. They will present, they'll talk about what they're going to do, study methodology, and thought that we might put together a piece that would go with that, would essentially explain the rationale for why we want to do this particular study. And if we can get as many voters as we can get that day, that'll probably go. So if I can find these sheets, I'll pass them out and take a look at them. Maybe I didn't bring them. I thought I did.
And the pedestrian village subcommittee has a phone conversation scheduled with Mark following the planning board meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
So they can continue that conversation.
Pedestrian village subcommittee?
Pedestrian
Yeah,
village
we're trying to change the
we're
name
trying to-
away
we're
from
trying to get it away.
transportation.
Why don't we
committee.
call it development committee?
Well,
Planning
because
development. Because who knows if we're gonna have a pedestrian village?
Well, and I've had people say to me, not in the meeting,
Mhm.
but after the meeting, say to me, why are we spending $90,000 to do a transportation study for something that may never happen?
Right, I think
Yeah,
this should
so
be,
there's gonna be some pushback.
Sure.
it should be a master development study.
It's
So-
not, that's not what it
that's
is. That's
not
the
what
problem.
it is.
But it's also, or it's got a reference, because I think the key point is the first goal, as I see it, is for this group to come in and give us a baseline of what we have, if it's being utilized correctly, and if we go forward, what we're gonna need and what are the parameters for going forward.
Relative to?
Relative to anything, meaning that if someone wants to put a building up in that area there, how many parking spaces and where are those gonna be gleaned from? If someone wants to put beds in there, how many spaces are gonna be needed for beds, and where will that fit within the space that we have? If someone's gonna do something really large, is the road gonna be wide enough? Is there gonna be room for a pedestrian path through the road?
Okay.
What is the impact going to be of something that would be put in? See, as I see it, we are, you know, as I said at the budget meeting, we're volunteers. We don't know what we don't know. We need someone to come in and say, listen, if you're gonna build this, we are already stressed to this level of this. This is the time to correct it going forward.
Mm-hmm.
That, I don't know what we want to title that, but I think that's the point we need. We need to get to these baselines. So if anyone is coming in, if anyone has a desire to spend any real money here, you know, they want to know what the rules are before they come in, because maybe then they could ask to have the rules changed a little bit. But when we have no real parameters and no existing guidelines.
Well, we
Yes,
do
we
have
do.
existing guidelines and
Right.
parameters. That's part of that's part of the problem, because if you look at the existing rules and guidelines, it's going to encourage the development of more green peaks.
Green Peak the mountain or Green Peak the
Green Peak
condo?
the condo,
condo.
Okay.
which
See-
is detached condos, multi-unit condos with parking behind them.
Right, see, I don't understand this as a citizen not being part of the planning board. I don't understand where we sit on this, and I don't understand how the spaces are devised at the Black Bear and Town Square and the hockey arena. Who gets them, what do we need for them, who owns them, who cleans them up, who we can hold accountable for them, who would be a partner in a plan to put in additional spaces. Who we talk to about making sure that these spaces have adequate room for snow removal, so when we have a snow, we don't lose half of our spaces.
Well,
The question is, do we need to spend $90,000 on a professional to tell us that, or do we need people to look at what the regulations say and
We know who owns the spaces.
we know who owns
Right.
the spaces.
We know who owns the
Right.
spaces. We also know pretty clearly that the people who own the spaces will not spend the money to fix them. And that if we wanted to actually get them fixed, we could do it. We'd have to do it at town expense and then build them. And the question is, are we willing to do that? We'd have to force them to do it.
No, I hear what you're saying with that. How do we not repeat this going forward as well?
Well, we have a master plan, we have zoning regulations that address the master plan. We have a set number of spaces that are required. We talk about this every time there's a
Right.
development. We talk about road widths, we talk about sidewalks, we talk about parking, we talk about all of this stuff. But we have not, since I've been here, we have not had an outside look, because everybody has their own opinions about it.
Right.
And we have not reached a consensus to this point among everybody here. We have not had an outside engineering firm that specializes in all aspects, just like you said, Mike.
Right.
Road width, sidewalk, all of that. And that's what we asked in the RFP.
Right.
That's exactly what the SE group is supposed to do for us.
No, I
And-
agree that we
and
need this.
I know a lot of it is common sense, but it's not in the sense that you can't just go on someone's opinion of what a wide enough parking space is.
Yes.
We
I-
have to be given some information, some data that we can then evaluate and
Yeah.
decide whether or not we want to change anything.
Right.
And this is maybe where we have a disconnect. To me, to answer the question of how wide should a parking space be is a tiny question.
That's
The
just an
problem
example,
is,
right.
how do you, we've only got, as it says in the master plan, 87% of the land in the town is already developed. The only developable land
Right.
is within that town center.
Right.
How do you maximize, how do you get the best possible use out of that? And the best possible, you read the master plan, it would suggest that in addition to high density housing, you really want to maximize the view and look of this valley
Right.
as basically a green open space. So when you answer the question of parking, it's not the width of parking spaces, is there a reasonable alternative to get the parking out of there?
That's
And
right.
you got,
I mean,
and that's
in
a
whatever
completely
I-
different
I-
problem.
I think it's the same problem.
It's the same problem.
I think the
Right.
width of the spaces dictates how you're going to get them out and where you're going to put them.
Right.
It's all related. We
It's
can't.
all- and the bus system is related
Exactly.
to it. And the,
Is
and
this
the
going to be?
roads.
Is this turnaround going to be long enough for 2 buses to go
Exactly.
with snow there?
That's right.
It was. It was like I looked
those
the
are
other day at
sorts of
the
things.
fire we had up on Noon Peak Road. Thank God no one was here. They couldn't have gotten the fire trucks here.
Mhm.
You know, I think we need someone to come in and give us the parameters, and then we can see if we want to redefine what we have, or how we make exceptions to what we have based on the parameters they've given us.
Right. And I just think that it's good practice to get somebody who does this
Yeah.
as their profession and has done it successfully in other communities to come in here and talk to us about it. And that's what this study is for. It's-
I don't disagree with the concept, and I don't think most of the people in town will disagree with the concept that getting somebody who's a professional and does this for a living in here to give us an unbiased opinion of how this should work going forward is an excellent idea. I think what you're gonna run into
Yes,
is
exactly.
how urgent.
How urgent and how
the need
expensive.
is it?
Yeah. The urgency is by the fact that we cannot, if we have a different vision, and that's why to me it does come back to the vision of what you want the center of town to be. Because the current planning regulations, if someone comes in and proposes a development that meets those regulations, you can't say, nope, can't do it. And what the current regulations encourage is covering surfaces with parking area. And we can't say you can't do that.
Right.
So if you want to have a different looking downtown, if you want an area with green spaces, if you don't want people to cover it with parking, we need to change those regulations now before someone proposes anything, or otherwise we're stuck. You know, I mean, Ray, am I talking out? I mean, I don't know how you turn them down if they meet the regulations.
That's why we rezoned that to commercial one back a
Right.
couple of years ago, so that we wouldn't wind up with all single
Family homes settled in there.
I mean, because that was the direction the
That
the
we were
developers were
going.
going. You know, Moose Run, it's all private homes, it's
But
all, that's been.
We've got
rezoned.
the dilemma is how do you, like what Margaret says, how do you convince people that this is worth spending money
Yeah.
on now? And part of the problem is if you don't study it now, by the time somebody proposes to extend Green Peak all the way around the perimeter, it's too late.
Right.
You can't turn it down.
Right.
People think we can. I think most people think you can turn it down. But I reasonably, you can't turn them down. I mean, you can delay them for a long, long time. You can make them take you to court. But in the long run, you're going to lose.
Well, then do you still want to have the meeting on the 22nd to
No,
talk about
no,
that stuff?
No,
Well,
they're not going to do it.
Not to talk about the Waterville company,
No,
but
no, I would suggest trying to address the concerns of people who are going to vote on the proposition for the
okay.
day of the meeting.
I think that's
And
his
have
proposal.
the
is
SE
perfect.
group
Yep.
come in on the day of the meeting and be available to answer questions about what they're doing. Selectmen have got to be there anyway. Answer questions about why we as selectmen think this is a worthwhile proposition.
Okay.
And put together a little set of talking sheets
Okay.
for something that could talk people, you know, so they'd have some knowledge of what this is about before the meeting. But to hold a meeting now, if they're not willing to present, which the non-residents are going to have a million questions about when is Green Peak going to open?
Yeah.
When is
Right.
it? You know,
Yeah.
that's their interest.
Yeah.
They're not interested in this.
Yeah.
You know.
that's good. I'm fine with doing it that way, and planning board group will work on with Mark Kane coming up with a single
But they
page
need to
bullet
come up
comment.
with a story that was different than the story they presented in the budget hearing. Because in the budget hearing, the story they presented was one of how did we select the SE group?
Right.
They need to talk about why this study is important to do now.
Yep.
And that does deal with the issue of, you know, understanding regulations. To me, to some extent, with trying to get this business of moving, what's in the master plan to some reality. I mean, because I continue to believe that unless somebody takes on the task of trying to make what's in that master plan a reality, nothing's going to happen.
Okay.
Ray, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree. And, we'll talk about that further tomorrow at the planning
Okay.
board meeting. Nancy brought that point up, that we have to convince, why
Right.
we're doing this, because,
Why is it not
People-
just common sense?
right, not just common sense.
Or based on what we got slapped down with last year, why isn't it based on what we've got, someone researching?
Well, it's because you can't, that's the thing, you can't get into it's about the width of parking spaces. There's no rationale for doing that. I mean, there's no reason to spend $90,000 to answer how wide should a parking space be. But that's where we got stuck last year.
That's what we
Yeah.
got, right.
But how
Yeah.
much traffic the road can take, how much weight the culverts can take, how much drainage is needed, all the things that would be needed.
Well, it's a lot of things.
It's-
And,
that's-
and
that's
it's,
why it's worth
if you really
$90,000.
want a beautiful looking center of town,
Yes, what are your trade-offs going to be?
what are the trade-offs? And what would the regulations, the new regulations have to look like to encourage development in that direction?
Development in the way, exactly, in the way we want it developed.
Right,
And what
and
kind
maybe
of
in a sense
development?
it's a blessing that the waterville companies bowed out of it, because what they want is the parking space width thing. They want to be able to build Green Peak with fewer parking spaces. I say that, I mean, but that's essentially, I think, one of their interests here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that as a talking point.
Well,
Well, that was a big discussion during the application.
Yeah.
right, they want the garages counted as parking spaces, and the current regulations say no, and that's a perfectly valid point. Maybe they should be counted. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but,
I wasn't party to the beginning of this, so I don't
Right.
know where to comment.
Well, just to expand on that, we had so much discussion about the parking, whether garages should count, whether they shouldn't count. I tried to get consensus from the planning board on how we should change our parking regulations to clarify it, because it's not fair to the developers. They come
Right.
in, they don't really know. And I could not get consensus from the planning board. So I'm hoping that we at least get that and get some suggestions from this study. And should attached garages count? Should we have additional parking for guests or only the owners? I mean, that's the kind of answers that I'm hoping we get. Because we could not get consensus from the planning board. So it is not common sense.
Okay.
no. Right?
Yeah, everybody has their interpretation of common sense.
No, and I really would, for once, like to answer the question of that desert we have sitting in the middle between the Black Bear and Town Square.
Yeah.
Are we going to fix that? And if so, what is it going to look like? And how are we going to get it done? Rather, because every time we address it, we essentially come up with a non-answer.
Exactly.
And somebody else ought to pay for it, but nobody's willing to pay for it.
Well,
I don't know what to say. I mean,
we can always make someone pay for it as a betterment.
well, that's it.
Yeah.
But there's reluctance to do that too.
Well,
I mean, with businesses that aren't exactly
Well,
rolling around in money,
Well,
right?
let's see what these people tell us
Right.
the way to proceed is.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, just one additional thing. The only advertisement we had was in the wigwag for the 22nd. Should we put
Oh
out a
no,
notice?
we've sent emails, we've
Yeah.
put it on the website, we've got it on Jan's
Okay,
blog. We've got to pull it off all of those places,
off.
but
You're going to have to send another
and
email
we'll have
out
to send
saying
another
that.
email that says it's canceled.
it's
So
canceled, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
we'll notify everybody. Put notices up at the post office.
Yeah.
And
Okay, good.
yeah.
But in talking to Bill, he's not. He ain't moving. He made the decision to do it. I mean, it's not the SE group that made a decision to do this. I mean, Bill made the decision. He doesn't want to do this, and why? You ask him. See what you can come up with. I'm not sure I know why.
Okay.
Okay.
Will do.
All right. Find my agenda here. Okay, anything else? Privilege of the floor?
Maryland's not on
Maryland.
the agenda.
Okay.
I have a petition here, signed by residents. Who shall I give it to?
Well,
You can give it to Mark.
take-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. To hopefully open up conversation about the possibility of getting a leash law in this town. I think I've talked to 50 to 100 people so far, and I've met 2 people who aren't excited about the idea. Unfortunately, for people who are well behaved, I say it's the people because it's not the dog's
Right.
fault, when their dogs are off leash, it's punitive, but for the majority of the dogs who are not actually under voice control, it's a punishment for the rest of the people who live in the village. So I think, like with school children, the idea is to keep things simple, and so I think the RSA 466.30, which is the state law that we currently have, I think we could use that and adopt that with one amendment, which I worded in the petition, being that we change at large to mean a physical connection, not voice control.
Can I just ask you a question before you go on?
Yes.
This is going to be for a conscious of the meeting, not a warrant article vote. It hasn't
Right.
made the criteria on the time to be a warrant article, correct?
So is it to be a consensus of the meeting?
Yeah, the only way to put a warrant article on the warrant right now is for the board to put something on. You can put it on the way she has worded it, you can not put it on,
Gotcha.
you can do whatever, but it's the selectmen now that have the final say on the articles that show up on the warrant. So it's your decision. And I told Marilyn that after your last meeting, or after the public hearing for the budget. We had a discussion the next day. She wanted to know, if there was anything, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there was anything that she could still do, I told her to come into this meeting, because at this point it's up to the 3 of
Okay.
you.
Can we see,
What goes?
I'd like to see the wording.
I have another copy so you don't have to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sorry to say more than that.
What would you propose changing?
In the RSA, if you flip to the actual RSA,
The state law,
yeah,
okay?
which is the last page, just that section 466.30. The only thing that I would change is their definition of at-large. They define it, and they define it as something more than being on a leash, which is where the problem has arisen. That people have become too lax with the idea of,
And,
Do these people who sign this have to be residents?
yes,
Okay, you have people in here who are not residents.
who's that?
The wards.
Kathy said she's a resident.
No, she's not.
Hmm.
Peter, I know, is not ward, and what's...
Well, that shouldn't be an issue. You can certainly get as many petitions as you'd like.
It's too late. You've missed the deadline.
There
Well,
was
no,
10
Mar-
inches
Mar-
of snow on the road that
Marilyn,
day.
you've missed the deadline. That's it. I came to this town. I was told I could not become a resident and get my kid into the school when because the deadline had passed. I had to wait 2 weeks. I had to play by the rules. I don't see why an exception has to be made.
Because there was 10 inches of
That's-
snow on the ground that day. There was 10 inches of snow on the ground that day.
That was-
and I'm not in Waterville Valley on Wednesdays.
Marilyn,
And I'm not
it's,
supposed to be here today either.
well-
It's a 2-hour drive in 10 inches of snow. I think that's a pretty good reason. And I agree that deadlines are deadlines.
Did you need to say this?
Yeah.
This is just a copy. It's
Oh,
the
it's
same
just a
thing you're
copy.
reading. I was
Yeah,
passing it
okay.
on.
That's just the same thing.
Mark, when do we have as selectmen the latitude to make a decision on this?
We have to send it. We have to send you have to sign the warrant and post it before Friday.
Before Friday.
Or on Friday, because we need to get everything signed and finalized and down to the printer.
If you have any interest in changing any of the wording or new suggestions, I can run them and
Yeah.
do whatever you need.
I
So
when
if we wanted to get a sense of the meeting,
Yep.
as to how many residents would be in favor of this change versus not in favor of this change, what do we have to do that?
That can be brought up at the end of the meeting when we have the time.
you have a warrant article in there that allows those sorts of questions to come.
Do we need to publish it and word
No.
it now?
No,
That can be presented at the
We
meeting.
can present it at the meeting.
that's correct.
This is an ordinance that, to begin with, is basically controlled by the selectmen anyway, right? I mean, we can change this ordinance without a vote of town, right?
I would have to, that was the issue, was it has more force if town meeting votes on it. It is easier to enforce. Yes, you can say we're gonna follow, which is basically what our ordinance says right now, is we're gonna follow town or state law. Okay, and that was what was adopted in the selectmen's ordinance. If you want to change wording or something like that, we should go to town meeting to do that and get a question.
There are two different issues here.
Yeah.
One is a binding warrant article that will
That's
change
right.
our bylines. The other is a conscience of the meeting,
That's right.
which is just an instruction what the group conscience is, and it has nothing to do
It
with
is
changing
non-binding. It doesn't change our existing ordinance or anything.
But other ordinances, again, I'm going to go back and ask this question: Do we have the right as selectmen, if the three of us voted to change an ordinance, can we change an ordinance
without a town meeting.
without a town meeting?
On some things, yes. There are some things.
Well, how do
that
we
you have
decide
control.
which you can and which you can't?
State law lays out what you can and can't change.
May I add something?
Can we
there?
change this?
No, town meeting voted on the original 1986, right, Marlon?
Yeah.
87. 1987 town meeting adopted that ordinance. It was signed off by the selectmen,
Okay.
but the 1987 town meeting
Adopted
put
the
in
ordinance.
place what is there.
Okay, so that can only be changed by a vote of the town.
Another town meeting.
We
three
can't go in and
cannot
change something that has been voted
That's
on by
right.
the town.
That's right. Now, you control the warrant. If you want to put
Put
new
a warrant
language
on,
on,
right.
even if it's today or tomorrow,
So we
you
can
can do that. I mean, and then it would be
Can,
discussed at
can,
town meeting
and we
and
can
be voted
put,
on.
and we can issue a warrant with a recommendation not to adopt,
You can,
okay? Even though it comes from us.
right. And if you want a sense of the meeting, I would just leave it to that last
Yeah, but
article.
you're telling me
and
the
come
sense
up.
of the meeting doesn't do anything.
No, the
because
sense
you
of the
can't
meeting
act on
does
it.
not do anything.
Right.
That's
Well, you
correct.
can't act on it. It's not like we could get the sense of the meeting and then as selectmen decide, okay,
That's
we
right.
heard
No,
what
but
the
that's
citizens
correct.
want, we'll change the
But
ordinance.
we
That's
can have a
correct.
sense of the meeting, so if it's presented again next year on time, it can come in, and the selectmen can endorse it based on the sense of the meeting.
Right. Or not, whatever you want.
Or, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I am, but the other way to look at this is if she has enough citizens who want to say it.
But there are only
we
8
can
names there. There aren't 50 names.
I can get 50. Would you
It's
like
too
50?
late. You didn't get them in time.
Well, no, but Mark's saying it's not too late for us to look at the 50 names and say, well, based on that, we could put the warrant article up there with
If
a
we are
recommend.
so inclined.
If to recommend to, exactly, we'd have to vote to put it up there.
I only have to have 7 names on that petition. I put 10 on.
Mhm.
That, if you would like 50, I will get 50.
Yeah, well, no, by law,
I did
what
what
he's
was
saying is
required.
true.
You
Yeah.
didn't do what was required. You weren't here on time with the warrant, with the petition.
Oh, you don't think 10 inches of snow is
Marilyn, I don't
legitimate
care about
reason?
10 inches of snow. I care. What about the 29 days before that or the 50 days before that? You're talking about 1 day of 10 inches of snow. It's if we make an exception to allow you to come in and put your petition on after it was closed, it gives everybody else the right to avoid that regulation based on snow, based on cold, based on almost anything.
I think 10 inches of snow is a completely legitimate reason. It does not show somebody who's a shirker or a slacker. It's a 2-hour drive to get back here. I never thought the meeting would continue. I was shocked that it had.
Margaret, you want to add something to this?
Well, the only thing that I think is difficult about this is Marilyn is absolutely right. She could probably find 50, 100 people, none
Right.
of whom own dogs,
Right,
to say, I don't care.
right,
Let's make it hard for the dog owners.
right.
And, I really don't want to see that happening.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
most of the people who are dog owners here, and I
Right.
include myself in that group, are here because there are places in town and there are temperaments of dogs where it is possible to let a dog be off leash
Mhm.
safely.
Public safety gave us the
Yeah.
answer to this issue.
And again, we had that discussion with public safety wherein they indicated that out of 700 complaints that have happened over the past 12 months, only 7 were about dogs. Several of them were repeats, and none of them were dogs that were here in town. They were all second homeowners who were up here for the weekend with their dogs that the complaints came in about.
That's absolutely not
So-
true. I have 3 filed reports, and I'm a homeowner here. in
No,
Waterville.
I mean the dogs that were complained against. The dogs that were complained against belonged to people who were visiting the valley, who were second homeowners, not residents.
I can name the 3 families, but I don't think it's appropriate. They all own here.
Shall we have a vote whether we're going to accept this as a petition or not?
You can't accept it as a
You
petition.
can't.
The question
Or
is...
override the regulations and accept it?
No, we're
as
not
one?
overriding the
So
regulations.
what
The
do we
question
do?
is, are we going to issue a warrant article on we as selectmen at this stage
okay.
can vote to put a warrant article up there that makes this change and then let people vote on it. We don't have to, we can put it up and we can recommend disapproval, but it allows the potential to be changed. That's the only thing we can do, or
Okay.
we can get a sense of the meeting.
I would rather get a sense of the
Yeah.
meeting.
I would too. I don't feel that you need to recommend it.
Well, why don't we do that? I'm on one hand, the signatures are there, and I'm saying, well, let the residents, I'm big for letting the residents decide, but I think we ought to start with the sense of the meeting. If the sense of the meeting is that most people really want dogs better controlled, then I think we're going to have to meet with the police again and find out what we're going to do to start to get tougher, around the current law. If that's what, I mean, I don't hear a lot of complaints, but if there are a lot of people that want dogs on leashes all the time, I think we'll have to have a conversation with the police about moving in that direction.
If that exists, that's fine.
Do we need to vote on this? I don't think
No,
we do, because
I-
we're not gonna issue a warrant article.
No.
But we need to figure out how to get these on the agenda.
It can be brought up at the agenda someone has,
It
just
is
makes a
on
motion
the-
from the
It
crowd.
is.
Remember at the end of every meeting, we go, would anyone like to bring up something that they would like to talk about and get a sense of the meeting? That's when it would come up.
It's already on the warrant. That warrant
That-
article is there.
The warrant
Right.
article for the sense of the meeting items, yes.
It's on every,
Marilyn, would you, when that section comes up, and we can talk to the moderator and make sure that, because a lot of people have a tendency to start disappearing out of the meeting. And make sure that that item comes up first. You do not need, well, what is she going to need? Is it gonna have to be
Someone's gonna
written
make a
ahead of
motion
time?
from the floor.
Is it a
will be
motion?
helpful, it will be helpful for the moderator. He's not supposed to have discussion without a motion.
Right.
So there
Okay.
should be some motion to take a sense of the meeting about X, Y, Z.
Right,
So
and
that
that
should
motion
be
could be
written
as
out.
simple
Written
as
out.
simply saying that, I'd like, a motion that, that the selectmen be instructed to consider, you know, a more restrictive leash law that would require dogs to be leashed at all times in the town of Waterville Valley, unless they're on their own property.
Right. Or whatever the wording, yes.
You
I
can-
mean, I think it should be as clear
Yep.
But
as
that-
what
that-
the intent is, because what this
yeah.
is, my concern with making this change is it's not clear at
Yeah.
all what we're changing.
I think it's up to the person making the motion to dictate what they want in their motion.
Well, I'm just trying to
Yeah,
help
yeah,
Marilyn.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, I'm not afraid if the town wants to vote. If the majority of the town says, I want dogs on leash, I'm gonna pay attention to that.
Oh, I
Even
would
though
too if that's
I
gonna
mean, if
happen.
that's what they
Right, that's all
want,
I'm
that's what they
asking
want.
for. I have found just a resounding interest in it, just huge. And people say that they would like it to be a private vote because they don't want to offend their neighbors.
That's not a problem either.
Well, I don't know.
No,
I guess
any-
you could
No, anybody can request a written
request
ballot.
that a written ballot.
That's not
Okay,
viable.
all right. Why don't we do it that way?
Okay.
So Marilyn, you'll be prepared to, and I would just use plain language, because at this stage, it doesn't have to be, it's just something to instruct the selectmen to, we would like a tougher, stiffer law to control pets. And if the majority of town votes yes, we'll have a discussion with the police as to what we can do now.
Okay.
I think the language is there already. I'll just try to
Okay.
present those. I think the RSA and having to try to get people to wade through the RSA to sign the petition or to vote on it is difficult for them because
The
it's,
RSA
it's
is
lengthy.
legalese, and
Yeah.
it's very
I know.
hard to understand.
But it would be adopting the RSA. And one point, I think that, I don't think we've ever officially adopted the RSA 466, the state ordinance, because if you look at the next section after 46630, 46631 tells you that it has to be adopted by the town by ballot.
I think
Well,
that's what
I'll-
Mark said it was
I'll
done
look-
in 1987,
I'll
wasn't it?
look at,
No.
I'll look at the motion,
I have
the
a copy of that.
1987
Oh, we
motion.
no, it's probably
was
not by
just a
ballot, it was
motion,
probably
wasn't
by vote.
ballot. And I would have to find out when 46631 was put in force, whether or not that was before or after 1987, and I don't know right off
Here it is.
the top of my head.
It's called, at the time it was a different RSA, I guess.
Yeah. So, again, I have not looked at RSA 3139, but we will, well, it was by ballot vote right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, the 1987 vote was by ballot. So,
Yeah.
if that provision was in there, the town did it correctly. And I didn't think
And Marilyn, understand that
Is that the same, have they changed the numbers?
they could have rescinded that and moved it to
To
466.
466.
That's very possible. I know right off the top of my head.
And Mark, just to clarify, it would be my understanding that provisions of this would not extend to Forest Service property, or would?
I don't know, but I don't believe it would. I do not think it would apply to Forest Service property, but I would have to check.
You
Right.
mean town?
They may have their own regulation for all I know.
They don't.
You mean town of Waterville? Because don't our town perimeters
The
expand
town
into the
perimeters
forest?
include
Expand,
the
but
national
there is
forest,
limits.
but there are
Some of our
limits.
rules
Some of our rules don't.
Don't apply to anything other than private property.
Right.
You
Yeah, if
cannot make a rule that supersedes
The
federal law.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you go out to depot camp, before you get on the Livermore Trail, there's a notice up there that says what the regulation is
Yeah.
for dogs, and that you're not required to have them on physical leash. If you have them under voice control, that's fine with the National Forest.
That would be fine with me too, if they were under voice control.
Well, everybody claims they are. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, I have ran into a guy. We got that child once bit by a dog on Forest Service property, and the guy swore the dog was under voice control until that incident.
Yeah,
No, he bit one of our dogs. That was it.
yeah.
Well, dogs are unpredictable, even
Yeah.
good dogs.
So.
Okay, let's leave it at that. All
Okay.
right?
Can I have that back?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want the?
No.
copy?
I don't think we need anything.
Okay. I'll take that one too.
I'll make sure that it's
Yep.
in the moderator's.
Yes, when we have the
Script.
preview with the moderator with Kevin, I want to make sure that
That will be, Sharon, could you make a note? That will be at the February 26th meeting. That will have that meeting with Kevin. Because that's the last meeting before town meeting.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
okay. Minutes of the meeting of January 22nd.
I had something that really confused me in the minutes.
There were a couple of changes. If I can find my notes again.
I had
Not
this on
proposed to me.
financial updates. The last line, this increase is due to payments on P&I of bonds for the media tank replacement, $50,000.
500,000.
But wasn't that the water tank, not media? Is that the right
Well,
word?
it's a dual filter media tank.
Okay,
is
media
what
what
it's
threw
called.
me off, and it was
Yeah.
off by $450,000.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
500,000, not 50,000.
Oh, right there.
Yeah. Can we change that to water
Water treatment tank.
water
that's
treatment
fine.
tank instead of media
Yep.
tank?
And it should be 550.
Well,
No,
call
500.
Call it a
500,
water
I'm sorry.
filter tank.
Filter
please.
tank.
Sharon, under public safety, when we were talking about the leash law, there are a number of places in there where instead of saying complaint, you said compliant.
Oh,
So you might want to read back
Oh,
through
yeah.
there. It's a couple,
Spell
like
checkers.
first
Spell
complaint.
checkers.
No, it's the
Compliant.
first complaint.
Okay.
The
I-
second
yes.
Okay.
complaint.
I also had another one on, under financial update, second to last paragraph. Mark let the Board of Selectmen know that part of the transportation, the firm would like to do a traffic count study during a February vacation. Of course, with this will be 3,000. 3,000 be added to the planning board as the data would be used by them, da 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 da. Didn't we have a place we could take that from? We didn't have to add?
No, we
we're going
added.
to add it to the
Okay,
planning
so it
board.
was added, it wasn't, okay.
And that's what's in the budget right now.
Gotcha.
It's the 5,500 instead of 2,500.
All right.
Okay, under privilege of the floor 1, item number 2, the first sentence, Bill Cantland asked the board of a proposed article item number 4, which concerns the core development concept. I would take out, which is being developed by the Waterville Company.
Okay.
They're not proposing to do this at all right? And the dates on the bottom, the informational meeting was going to be on 2/22, not on 3/1. So those should
Where did we
read
get 3/1?
2/22. Okay?
It was 222. Yep.
Yeah, right. That was, even though we're not going to do it now. And let's see. I thought under section number 4, financial update, all the way down on the bottom, let Mark let the Board of Selectmen know that it's not necessary. It's that as part of the transportation plan And I would say it's the SE group would like to do a traffic count study during the February vacation period,
Yes.
since they were the ones that were selected. And I think that's it. Ones I have, anyway. So I'll make a motion then to change the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Financial update.
I did not, I was writing the town report,
Okay.
sorry, this
Quite all right.
morning, and I did not, get to the
Anything worthy of
financial-
reporting?
No, we're gonna talk about the road salt. I've checked the, expenditures, talked to Jim about the expenditures in the highway department because of the snow. And we're doing fine, where salt is about 40% spent for the year, which is right on track for where we are.
Okay.
So we don't, public safety is doing fine. There hasn't been any huge uptick in their expenditures. Rec department, Rachel will talk about how things have been going so far for the winter, but I didn't see anything in the budget and the expenditures. So we're doing fine.
Well, then why don't we cover the public head updates
Yeah.
and
Start with
public's-
Rachel, so
oh, you
she
want to
can
start
get
with
back.
Rachel? That's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. Rachel?
Well, we do have one budget thing to talk about with the outside contractors, but we'll get to
Right.
that in a second.
I didn't bring too much with me.
It's okay.
Sorry. Let's see. We're getting ready for February vacation week. We have everything scheduled, planned for next week to go off, so we're all ready to go. Shopping was done this morning for it, so we're all set. The adult programs continue to be going great. Over the weekend, we had between 15 and 20 people on the court both Saturday and Sunday for pickleball.
Yeah, I heard there was a pretty good crowd.
Right.
Yeah.
So between pickleball, tech at the
Need to
rec,
expand the gym, huh?
Yeah, right.
they're going to be asking probably for an outdoor court. Pickleball, indoor cycling, tech at the rec, and volleyball have all been
Well subscribed.
very popular. So that's been great. What else about the rec department?
Well, let's
Now,
talk
I
about
thought
the-
you
go
had
ahead.
taught, I thought somewhere that I read, Rachel, that you have some concern about the fee structure relative to outside people- outside instructors teaching courses that seem to be, I thought the memo was reasonably popular, but
Right.
they're now exceeding your budget or something.
Right.
Yeah.
We budgeted 1,000.
Right.
Yep.
Which is, so that, I guess, going back in history a little bit, that line was funded roughly about $6,000 when we did the adult fitness program. Then when the athletic club took that over, we dropped that back. We were basically
Right.
using the race center, the golf course, the tennis for our outside archery,
Right.
Now with some of the programming that we're doing between the after school and the adult programming, we're either seeking half of the registration fee for the program, or a program like yoga, our property owners and residents are free to take that class, but we're paying the instructor
Okay.
a per person rate.
A per person rate. And in 2013, we budgeted $600. We spent 510 of the 600. With the new way that we've structured the fees, we did up that $600 to 1,000 in the proposed budget, but she already has spent 900 of the $1,000. So we really, if we can continue with the fee structure and giving the free to the property owners free access, then we're not going to be able to. We're going to be well overspent on that line.
And what are the programs where we have outside instructors? Yoga's one.
Yoga.
Yoga would be the big one.
Okay.
Like I said, we're paying her
$10 per person, and we're collecting $10 on anyone that's not a
property owner.
right, a guest of the valley.
So it's cost us $900 in 6 weeks?
Well, that's
Archery.
just one, and then we had our archery program as well, where we did collect half of the registration fee.
So that's, the archery program is not a loss. The
Well,
instructor's
it's
working for
half
half.
of it.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
No, the instructor is working for half. So the instructor is the most, we're just not making as much from the archery program. It's not costing us because if we're getting half of the fee and the instructor gets the other half.
No, so she's charging $60 a person
Right.
for a 5-week class, then we would have charged $30.
We charged 30, so we paid
So
30 of
she,
the 60.
30 is coming out of
30 is
tax
coming
money.
out of the
30
Oh, I
is
thought it
coming.
was the other way around.
No,
I thought,
no.
if we
Right.
got 60,
No.
the town got 30 and the
No.
instructor got.
No, the instructor gets 60, and what
No,
the
I've-
way we
I've got it
structured
now.
is we've
We've gotta
been
look at this
covering
model.
half of that cost. That it and it's
And
good
the people
because the program
participating paid 30?
paid 30, and we paid the instructor
But in the
60.
case of yoga,
So-
we're not charging anything.
We're not charging anything, but it's good that the programs are, the programs are popular. But
I understand they're
we
free.
can't- Well, that's right, because that's kind of, I think that was part of the discussion. But we need to plus up, either do one of two
Yeah.
things: change the way we're charging for it, or plus up this line item before we go to town
Well,
meeting.
okay.
Because I don't want to
No, I
create
gotcha.
a deficit in her
What do you
budget
think,
from
Rachel?
the
Yeah.
start.
Can you charge? Will it affect people if they are charged for the yoga? You think you'll lose a lot of people?
People are going to Missy's Yoga, and they're paying.
Right.
Because it's a rec department program,
They don't want.
they're, right, exactly.
And who's the instructor at the rec department?
Missy.
Belinda Phillips is
So it's
the,
not Missy, it's a different one.
right. Missy is, there's a couple other yoga classes taking place in the
Yeah.
valley, all of which participants have to pay for.
Okay.
Anytime the rec department in the past year or so has tried to charge for an adult fitness program, I mean that was one of the big discussions when we
Right.
started the whole adult programming, was that adult fitness was kind of key on the list there.
What would your thought be? What would you prefer? What do you think the way out of this is? Because
Well, I mean, I think
if you're
having
talking
something-
$900 a month, that's $10,000. That's going to be $10,000.
That's
Right.
what I'm saying to you, Mike.
Oh, no,
what
I
we're
understand.
recommending is do one of two things: either change the fees.
I've got you,
or
Mark. I'm just
plus up
asking
the
Rachel what
alumni.
she is suggesting.
I think having something consistent across the board,
Right.
so whether it's the after school program, whether it's a clinic that we're running for the kids or the adults, whether it's a fitness class, have it be the same model, I guess. Right now, there's not too much, I guess, that is we're charging for. A lot of what we do is free at the moment. But the after school program, they're not paying half,
Right. I mean,
Right.
the after-school program, even it would typically, if you had on average, 5 kids, we're not covering our cost. Even our out-of-pocket for part-timers, we're not covering our costs for that.
Well, I guess it depends how we look at it, because
Yeah.
that staff is there to run other programs as well, including.
Well, not when the kids are in the gym, right? They're pretty much the only thing they're doing. I mean, they then that night cover pickleball.
or
Right,
volleyball
yeah.
or.
But for the period that kids are in the gym, they're the only ones in there, right?
Yes and no. There's
Oh, okay.
there's cycling that takes place during that time. There's tech at the rec that takes place during that time.
All
So
right.
we are kind of
Okay.
using that time frame for
for multiple programs.
yes. Whereas in the past, you are correct, that wasn't the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, whatever.
But-
yeah.
Yeah, so I just, in talking to Rachel, we can't sustain $900 every month or month and a half and expect her to do that within her budget.
Well, we never know what the participation
And we
is.
don't-
We
and
had one
That's right,
Wednesday where we had 11 people show up.
right.
Today we had 5.
Right.
5's about the average, but
Yeah, and it is all over the place, so we can't really forecast to you exactly what it's gonna cost, but, it's gonna be definitely something more than $1,000 unless we charge for the whole
There's-
cost from now on.
I know they want another archery class.
Well,
So
that
you know,
was
those-
$600, right?
Right, I mean,
That
but how do we
that
want to
cost
go
us
about that? Do we want to
Is-
offer it and have the same model, or
Is the yoga instructor negotiable? Are they amenable to changing their structure?
I'd have to chat with her about that.
And when you explain that we can't sustain what we're doing,
We've got another thing, and one of the problems, and it's always the dilemma of what do you do when private entrepreneurs are offering the same thing?
Mm.
You know, we're competing, you know, and I kind of loathe to take someone's business away simply because we undercut them, you know. But I think if we have to hire an instructor, we should, in those cases where we have to hire an instructor, we should be covering at least part of the cost.
one of the things we did
What
at the
do you-
golf course when we were doing our group
Yeah.
lessons, we had a deal where the instructor was guaranteed a minimum per day, and what came in above that was ours. And that it worked for us in a way where we've had a dead day, you know, it cost us a little bit of money, and in those days that were great, we made a little bit of money to cover. It was, we tried to do it as a wash, and that's how it worked for us. Or maybe your instructor would look at this if we had a minimal charge, and the instructor, we're gonna guarantee you this much per class. Anything over that is ours, and we'll guarantee you that minimum no matter what. So if they come in and they have a day where there are 2 people.
Well, you just want to say, you know, do it on a flat fee basis.
Right.
You know, and run the course, and I don't know whether she'd do that. I assume she might. You know, give us a rate. We'll pay you a flat fee. But then
But then
We
we
got
should
the same
put more
problem.
money in this line item for the rest of the year if you
Yeah.
wanna do that.
And we've got to determine, are we gonna start charging a minimal
Why?
charge for it?
I think philosophically we should. If we have to hire an outsider, I think we ought to be trying to cover some of that cost.
Okay.
And likewise, I mean, I don't know what the situation is, and maybe this is true even in pickleball. I mean, that if we're having to have 2 part-timers sit there for another 2 hours every day because somebody's playing pickleball, then I'm not so sure it should be free.
Well,
Now, that's a supposition. Now, maybe if the people are there already,
Well-
you know, and it's.
I mean, it's like what is there already. I mean, part of the reason that they're there is pickleball. Part of the reason are the other programs. Part of the reason is you've got to give them. You got to give them at least 3 or 4 hours. You can't
Right.
ask a person to just come up
Right,
for
that's
an
the
hour.
point.
You know,
That's my
so-
point.
yeah.
so the
Is
person
they're
is-
just going to sit there doing nothing
Right.
because a minimum they're going to work is 4 hours at a clip.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
that's what we do in our personnel policy is
Right.
at least 4
But-
hours.
But we
On
also,
shift.
Basically right now from Tuesday to Friday, in comparison to last year, I mean, we would close at 5:30, you know.
Right.
Now we're open till 7:30.
7:30.
Right, so
Seven-
we're
so
staying
staff's there
open
till
an
7:30.
additional 2
but
hours.
here's our dilemma. Our dilemma is our citizens pay taxes that support the recreation department. And they're thinking, why should I pay an additional fee because I'm already paying my taxes?
Right.
And that's
And I
why
think-
like the
Yeah.
pickleball is free
Yeah,
for that reason.
right.
And-
And
and I'm
I
also-
think the
Spinning
only
and
answer
Heck of the
is
Rack
if we
and-
have to get additional resources outside of the rec department, we should have some kind of fee.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, I think if people are paying for yoga classes all over the place,
Yeah, well,
there
it's
should be a minimal fee.
I
And
know
the instructor
it's
should be based on a
You're
flat
right.
fee.
I mean, the problem with the adults in this town is they view that virtually all the money goes to the benefit of children. Nothing gets spent on me. And all I'm asking for is playing a little pickleball, and you want to charge me for it.
No, I don't want to charge them for pickleball because nobody's instructing them.
Right.
I understand there
Right.
are people from the rec department who are there because pickleball is going
Right.
on. But I don't see that the same
Right.
as having to bring
Right.
in an archery instructor
Right.
from outside.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. If we can't negotiate a flat fee for the instructor, then well, first of all, what's the amount that you're willing to put in on this line item? Are you willing to put $5,000
Rachel, what do you
on that
need
line?
for an amount? Given the parameters we're discussing here, and I think you need to find out from the instructor if they're amenable to taking a flat fee.
Okay.
And if we get a flat fee number,
We don't have that time, Mike. We really don't.
all right,
we gotta,
Mark,
we
I'm
gotta
just
get
Mark.
this squared away.
I understand this, but this is just getting dumped
For-
on my head right now. I'm thinking off the top on how the best way to proceed with this instead of, I understand we're under
If
a
we
time
spend
constraint.
$900 in the first month,
Well, the
Then-
money, I don't, I know you're concerned about the money, but that's why we budget contingency. Is to some extent, if we overspend it and we don't change the policy, we'll find a way to cover it. I mean, I don't think we want to change the budget, the town budget at the last minute. We'd have to have another budget hearing.
No.
Right?
No, we can
Well,
make
I mean, we can
these
change
kind of
it.
little adjustments.
Right.
We do this all the time.
No, I understand what you're saying.
I'm just trying not to. I'm trying not to use a contingency. The contingency is for those things that we don't foresee. If we have an opportunity to get this squared away, then
Yeah.
I think we ought to fix it.
Okay.
If you know.
So Rachel, do you think if nothing is going to change, if we're stuck with the deal we've made for the rest of the year between archery and yoga, do you think you can get through with $10,000 for the year? Would that cover you
Yeah.
with a struck? Okay, what is the way you say yeah has me concerned that might be too much. What do you think is?
Well, I mean,
Because we're
again,
at
this is-
we're
this-
at 900 now. Is it going to run 12 months, or is it going to run 10 months, or is it going to
probably
run?
going to slow down a little bit in the
Okay,
summertime.
That's the point I'm trying to get at.
Um,
So your best guess, what if you came in here and had to ask us for this money, or you do have to ask us this money, what would you ask us for that you think is realistic?
Well, I think in the past we've had about $6,000 in there. I know some of the school parents are looking for a cross-country ski clinic to come up, so we would use the Nordic Center and their instructors for that. Yeah, yoga would continue.
Okay,
They
but
want another archery class. It's all how much we can fit in between kind of.
oh no, I've got you. But would we work on a new model going forward with new classes so we break even? Our goal is to break even.
To break even.
Break a minimal of breaking even.
Well, that's a lot different than free.
Right. I mean,
That's-
if we had to break
But no,
even, we'd
I-
have to charge $10 a
But I'm
session.
also agreeing with Margaret on the point where we have the recreation. You want to play pickleball, you want open gym, you want any of these things. The facility is there, it is open, there is staff there. It doesn't cost us any additional money to do it. If we're going to offer these other things like the archery or the yoga or something else,
Cross-country skiing.
yeah,
we
cross
gotta
country
pay.
skiing coming up, that there'll be a minimal fee that will be a wash. We're not going to try to make money on it,
Right.
but at least we want to try to cover ourselves.
And so, what would you recommend?
Well,
right
then
now,
we charge
generally
$10 a
do
session for
15%.
yoga, and everybody, and then we demand everybody to stop going again, because we apparently end up with the yoga people who don't want to pay. The other people who want to do yoga that are willing to pay go to the
Go to the other ones.
go to the gym. Actually, it's a little more complicated. I
Well,
think this
there's
is
all
the
kinds of
fast yoga
different-
and the
Or
slow
if the
yoga.
instructor
right.
will guarantee, the instructor you say works some nights for 5 people, right? If they'll,
It's all who. I mean,
right,
depends on
if
who
they'll
shows
take
up.
if they explain that to continue offering this, will they offer it at 50? No, but it's a complex question, not a quick answer.
No, I understand
So-
that. I just
What would you say
I mean,
you would
I would
need?
feel more comfortable if I had like just a little bit of time to maybe plan out the rest of the.
Oh, no, I've
and get an
got
idea
you.
before I could just spout out a number. you
No,
know?
I agree with you. We're all operating on just brand new information thrown at us. So give us a rough figure, and if Mark feels the need to adjust the budget for that rough figure, we can always see if that's
yeah,
acceptable to
$5,000
the
or
rest of the board.
$6,000 I think is fine. I
I feel comfortable with that as well.
because
We-
then we could structure it on a maybe negotiating a flat fee, maybe and there would be some times when we would lose money and we'd make a payment out of this line item. And I think for the rest of the year that the 5,000 should be
Right,
should be
and
fine.
I mean, last summer we started to do some adult programming. That was new for the summertime. This summer will be our second summer of doing it. We have more of an established program now, but what does the summer bring? I don't know that.
Right.
Going into next summer, I may have a better understanding. So what will we offer that we may need an instructor for? I don't know. I don't know what the
All right, but
participation is even going to be this summer. Is everyone going to be off to their summer home or golfing? More.
Well, just so I get my 2 cents in here, I look at the total thing from the standpoint of only one issue. How much are we paying and how much are we receiving in revenue? And right now, I think the budgeted deficit is somewhere around $145,000. I want to keep that, but personally, and I'm just one vote, I want to keep that deficit under 150. I don't want to spend, I don't want to go back up to having a deficit of 170,000.
Okay.
And I don't care if we gotta just start canceling stuff, but
Okay.
I don't think for a town this size, we should be spending anywhere near this amount of money on recreation. I mean, I look at towns around here and around, I'm amazed at the numbers that spend nothing, zero.
But our rec department bill is
Well, I
servicing
understand.
a lot more than 300 people.
No, no,
We're
I-
servicing the
Right.
resort. And in order to do that, we need
Well,
to
I
have a
would think
program.
other towns, they're charging enough to cover their cost of operating. And seem to be able to do it. And I'm not even suggesting we can get there. All I'm saying is I'm trying to keep it personally under 150. I think that should be more than enough in terms of tax, because what we're doing is taxing people who don't use any of these services to
Right.
subsidize people who use them. So things like cross-country skiing for kids. My initial reaction is, you want to teach your kid to cross-country ski, go over and sign them up. What are you coming to us for? I mean, why should we subsidize to teach some kid to learn how to cross-country ski?
I mean, we don't have
I mean,
to
it's
change
like,
this line.
why not pay for lift tickets?
We don't have to change this line $1. If we can say that any of our outside instructor programs are going to be paid 100% by the participants. If we say that, we can leave this at $1,000.
I think I would personally start with we need to do an outside instructor. We should be recovering at least half the cost.
Okay.
So I would go for, we're going to charge half of whatever that the fee of the instructor is, and then let's see what happens. If people aren't willing to pay it, then my reaction is they're really not all that interested.
Okay.
I mean, they're
then
still getting
that's
a
good.
deal.
And that's fine. And I would say if we plus that up to $4,000, we'll have more than enough for the rest of the year. All of our outside programs from this point forward will be 50-50
Well,
participant in the town. And let's just see if there's participation.
I understand
and we
that,
can come back.
but I'd like to get Rachel's feedback on how to implement this without,
Right, sure.
what's the best way for you? Are you comfortable with doing it this way and moving it, or do you want some time before you do this? Is there a certain cycle of classes where you can, at the end of the cycle, let people know that it's going to go up, as opposed to putting up a sign saying Monday it's going to?
No, I think we need to get the word out there a little bit that the fee will, I mean, the only class that it will really affect is yoga at this point.
Okay.
Or if you started an archery thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going
But
forward,
you were charging
We
for
were
it.
charging
charging
50%.
half.
Right, you were
And-
charging
Yes.
50%. Right.
I guess I just need a little clarification. Does this model stand true for every outside thing
I
we
think,
do, whether it's
yeah, I think so.
a children's program, an adult program, a teen program, if we're getting an outside instructor for it? And
Well, it should minimally. I mean, there are probably some things we do that use outside people. We were covering COVID, like the summer programs. In some cases, you're at 100%. You're making money, in theory, on some of those. But minimally, yeah.
I guess I'd like, sorry to complicate it, but I'd like to understand, what are the other programs besides yoga and archery that we bring in outside instrucors for?
right now, those would be the ones that we have set in stone. If we've done anything with the Ray Center,
Mm-hmm.
if we've done anything with the golf course, the tennis, those would be examples of when we would bring in the outside instructor.
I see those being reasonable fee required programs. I don't know about the Ray Center, because the Ray Center has an educational component that's attached to the school, and maybe people have taken that as for granted, that it's all encompassed. But I see when you're leaving the campus, maybe that's the guideline I'm seeing. I'm seeing the Ray Center, the cottage being there, being part of the school campus because of the school teaching and all that, being assumed by people that that's covered. But I can see if you're going to the golf course or the tennis course, or like when you take a trip to, where'd you go the other night? You went tubing somewhere?
Right.
Yeah, when you do that, people expect to pay, and they do pay.
They did.
Yeah.
So,
And
Yeah.
they actually covered the cost of the trip.
Right.
And
well, that's good.
but I mean, I guess that's one of my
But
questions.
that's different than what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's totally different than what we're talking about. Because we've always covered the cost, and that's why we don't go if there are too few people.
Right.
I mean, we cancel a lot of stuff because there just aren't the participants. You know, so that part of it, I don't see an issue. That doesn't come out of here anyway, from what we're talking about. That's a pay-as-you-go thing.
Why don't we make a decision now to cover, that covers the yoga and the archery,
Okay,
and give Rachel an opportunity to look at what are some of the other programs, and should we be doing something different with them in the future? I don't know whether we want to go with a blanket, 50% of the cost comes
well, if
from-
we're covering 50 on, no, okay, but if we're doing 50 on archery, why don't we start out the same thing on yoga
on
and
yoga,
see where it
yeah,
goes?
and see where it
And
goes.
just have it apply to those two.
So maybe we'll
for the
have
time
that be effective in April. We'll get the word out for.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
self-decided.
Yeah. And then if there are other programs that in the past we haven't charged for, or we haven't charged 50% for, I kind of like to know, whether there is something else that we should be doing that with. But I don't have a good enough handle on it to understand it right now.
Okay.
But I do agree with Bill on the point of the cross-country skiing.
Yeah.
This is in the community. Our parents don't have to venture out and don't have to explore new avenues to get their kids a cross-country lesson.
It would be part of the after-school program.
Yeah, but maybe they can negotiate. That could be negotiated directly with
Yeah,
the
that
cross-country
to me
center.
would be a case where we shouldn't be taking a loss on it. I don't have no problem going over, negotiating with the cross-country people. Yeah, I will do a group lesson in the afternoon for little kids at this rate, but the kids would have to pay.
The full amount or the
Yeah,
The
the full amount.
50%.
I don't know why we would want to, I'd like to hear it, but the kids are in the after-school program, why we would want to subsidize them to go cross-country skiing.
as a program to offer to them.
I have no problem with the program, I have the problem, why should we subsidize it? Why would we use general taxpayers' money to take care of 4 or 5 kids that want to go cross-country skiing? If they want to go, and I have no problem organizing it, but maybe trying to negotiate a discounted rate so they're not charged the regular thing, but they ought to be charged.
Yeah, doesn't the mountain give a discount to the school kids for their school? I'm sure they do. Actually, I worked on part of that.
I'm unaware of what.
But
Yeah.
they're still paying though.
Oh,
We're
I
still using taxpayer dollars to take those kids up to ski
That's
on Wednesday.
I wasn't talking about the funding source. I was
Yeah.
talking about the discount availability.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
that-
sure it would be a discounted. I mean, they're not going to charge whatever their rack rate is, or whatever their charging rate for a cross country ski lesson is not going to be what they charge the rec department to take a group out there. I know that.
No, that was the question I had. But can this cost be passed on to the parents of these kids?
Sure.
That's all we're asking.
Okay, we need to bring.
So do we want to put
the
4,000 into the budget?
Well, that's the first question. Do you want to put 4,000 into the budget instead of 1,000? And do you want? We will bring the fee structure. We need to talk about this because
Yep.
we have 3 different situations here and 3 different ways of doing it, right? That I just heard. So I want to do what you guys want us to do, but we're going to have to look at every one of these because we just came up with quickly 3 examples and 3 different ways of doing it, from free to 50%
Yeah.
to 100%
Well, that's something we have to
of a
look at.
charge. So we'll bring this back into you in the spring after we get into the spring shutdown, and we'll look at it for the rest of the year through the summer.
See, I
And
would
into
say,
next
Mark,
year.
to some extent, and you can certainly come to us for guidance as to what to do. I look at this more as a monetary thing.
Right.
That we basically say, look, you've got so much money to operate against.
Right.
How you want to set those rules to operate it. As long as you operate within the budget, I'm willing to say it's your prerogative to do what you want to do.
Okay.
But it's not like, well, you know, come back with this little one, so I need $4,000 more in the budget or $5,000. The budget should be the budget. And once we set it, and if you want to change the rules, you can come in and recommend changing the rules. I don't know if we have any unique insight as to how to do
Well, I
this.
don't know that we have insight. These guys need the comfort of knowing what the fee structure is.
Yeah, right.
And I just want some consistency between whether it's it seems like if it's an adult program, then it's a different. We're
Thought
supposed to be doing
process.
than a youth program.
And that's because we
No,
don't
I
have the
see the
same kind of
confusion.
insight.
I would like it to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
some consistency so we
Yeah.
can.
And I'm not asking
Justify
about
it.
the
I see your
budget
confusion.
specifically, except we identified an issue
Right.
before the budget was set. So that's why I brought it back to you, because it's not fair to her to go into the rest of the year knowing that we've got this potential issue with this line item. And it wasn't like it was 10%.
No.
Right.
It was, it's 100,
And I think
200%.
reasonably, people understand that if there's an outside instructor to
Right.
do it, I think they have a reasonable expectation they would have to pay the cost of the outside instructor.
Well, that's-
Where we got into problems before was on
Yeah.
things like spinning,
Yeah.
where the argument was, look, you've got 3 rec people sitting out there. Why can't one of them teach spinning? Now, yoga, they can't do it. I mean, you really need somebody's equipment. But they said, you know, why? Well, just let us use the equipment. That's all we're asking. So I, you know, it's always a gray area that way. When what they, and I still get the same thing. Like, you know, when we've got 19 people playing pickleball and there's 2 people climbing the wall and there's 4 people taking care of 2 people on the climbing wall. Now, that's one of the dilemmas of letting adults in there.
And there are 4 people if there are 2 lines working.
Right.
There are.
Yeah.
And
And
they're
they're
required.
saying, why?
So-
You know, it's
I don't
back
think they
to.
can even remotely have that argument this year. They've been in the gym
I
during
know.
pickleball and
Right.
seen
Yeah. And they don't
both
get
things
charged, and it's
extremely busy
right. Yeah.
on numerous
Right.
occasions. So
Yeah.
I'd be really disappointed to hear.
They'll have
anyone
no
make that
arguments,
argument.
Rachel.
I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
yeah.
will.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure, like, the honesty of the programs
Yeah.
are being told. You know, not
Yeah.
that 2 people are climbing and.
Well, we'll.
Oh no,
we'll make
that's
this
it's
small.
exactly what I've heard.
Then I
I
think
you know,
maybe
I don't
coming in
know.
on a Saturday and seeing everything lay out would be beneficial because I can show you the numbers on a Saturday between climbing and pickleball.
No, but they're referring to climbing. They're saying, you know, like there's 2 kids climbing and that's it. You know, yeah, there's 19 people playing pickleball.
Yeah, there are only 2 ropes. No,
Well-
it's neither here nor there. Rachel,
So-
I think you're doing a great job. You're just getting a lot of stuff thrown at you. You know, do the best you can, and if you need us for guidance, please feel free to.
We got another thing we have to discuss.
We do.
Yeah, I know.
It's an agenda item. So
Well, and we might as well
whatever.
talk about it.
Yep.
So I mean I can speak to this a little. I have seen all the applications of people who have expressed an interest in part-time work
Right.
at the rec department. Most of them were not qualified. In other words, they didn't have the appropriate programming background, work with teens, adults, that kind of thing. They were, in general, just people who said, well, that sounds like a part-time job. I guess I'll apply for that.
Right.
So we interviewed the 3 people who appeared to have related background. And one of them is not available until June. And there is one other person that we liked very much. But what Rachel was feeling after we went through the 3 interviews, and I don't need to put words in your mouth, but I will, is that the one person that we liked very much might be somebody that she could use as an assistant recreation director instead of hiring 2 part-timers. And you have to remember the history of this is we had Tom over there and we had Liz over there, so there was a total of about 72 hours programmed. And with 2 part-timers, we were going to get, 68 hours or something like that. And so what Rachel is saying is that she thinks with a 40-hour full-time person, she could get this work done that used to be done
Yep.
in 72 hours. But it is more expensive.
Right,
It's more expensive because of the benefits.
right.
Yeah. So, I had suggested that perhaps we ought to see if we had a better response to the ad, and where are all the places that the ad went?
The original ad for
Mhm.
Tom's
Mm-hmm.
now
Yeah.
part-time position was in the paper, local paper, Penny Saver and the Record Enterprise, which got pushed out to all of their.
Goes all the way to Littleton. down to
That was
Napoleon.
out for 2 weeks. From
Right.
there, we had things posted for about 2 months, I would say, in the New Hampshire Parks and Recreation
Parks
Association
and Rec
website.
website.
Also, the information was sent down to Plymouth State's Hyper Department, Health PE Recreation Department,
Yeah. Right.
to their recent graduates.
Yeah, and we don't have, so it's been out there for a while and just not seeing the candidates that we think are the right people. So,
Question: do we have a policy? Did we change the policy when we went through everything where a new hire is probationary for a
Yeah.
while and doesn't get benefits?
No, they
for
get benefits,
from
but
day
they're
one?
in probationary status.
For a very brief, but it's
For-
4
well,
months.
it's up to a year.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, but they still start with
but they
benefits and
do
everything
start
day
with
one.
benefits. Yeah.
All right. So, as I remember seeing the numbers, I think there was about a roughly $5,000
Yeah.
difference to hire a full-time person.
right.
And you've got a good full-time person you think you could hire that would help you out and get you in here and help you going through the summer?
Well, we interviewed one particular candidate that would be a good fit. However, I think posting it as a full-time position, especially in the
probably
New Hampshire.
get some
Yes.
others.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, I don't have a problem.
And we haven't posted it as a full-time
Right.
position as yet because we wanted to have this discussion. I was in favor of posting it as a full-time position and seeing
Right.
what came up, and then getting permission if
Yeah, if you got the right person to hire.
we got the right person.
Yeah,
But
I don't have a problem with this at all.
I will emotionally always have a problem with this. My concern is, again, as I've said it before, there's 2 things with full-time people. We got to be absolutely sure that if a year from now recreation participation goes down, we're willing to face into getting rid of a person if we have to. This cannot be a commitment that we hire somebody and in 3 years from now we just don't have the demand and we're not willing to deal with it. Because my reaction up to now is we don't get rid of people. I am seeing, that's just my thing. So and I would like to see it probationary for a year. All right, so that's one thing. Number 2, I don't want to see that gap get over 150,000. So if we can find ways to make it full time, but we'll take money out of something else. We'll cut programs that are losing money. We'll do something to try to either get the amount of part-timers we need to cover things that aren't paying their own way, or we'll raise revenue. I mean, but I just don't want to see the gap going to 160,000. I think we're already at a number. Now, if I can find a town, and I've been looking, and that's why I've asked for Lincoln's now, if I could find a town that was spending even close to what we're spending, I think we're just way over the top, and I don't want to. I personally don't think we should be expanding it anymore. So I'm okay with the 150 gap.
Yeah. All right, can I ask you a question? Because I think I might be right or I'll be right or wrong either way with this question. When we went to, when Tom left and you had Liz and Corey, you were able to cut back on your part-timers. Was that correct?
Well, I don't know if I can really answer that because Corey
hardly was
Wasn't
there.
it was
there.
like 2 weeks she was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just under the opinion that your lower-end part-timers, meaning your high school and college, your real part-timers,
Correct.
those hours were cut back a bit. Am I correct with that?
Yes.
So that will allow us for you to cost out this other position, and we have a history of when you've had a good staff, you can make it work with less part-time hours. Is that a fair assumption? To a degree.
Yes, I mean, in the fall, there's a number of things that happen every 3 weeks that require us to ramp up the.
Oh no,
the staffing.
I've got that, but you can actually, you have some discretion in your lower end part-timers, where if, revenues started to fall, you could adjust that way. With a full-timer, you could adjust that full-timer's hours. Instead of being here this hour, that full-timer would be covering the hours you weren't there to do these things. So part of the full-timer's hours and cost could be wiped out by the elimination of the part-time people when it's not busy.
One or two of them. I don't
Yeah.
know
Okay.
as though all of the part.
No, I'm not saying all of
eliminated,
it, but I'm just saying it doesn't become the full burden of this necessity.
Well,
It's not necessarily the full burden of it.
as I said before, my only
No,
thing is,
I understand where you're
I'm
coming from on
struggling
this.
with, I don't want it going back up again. I mean, the deficit has been climbing for the last 7, 8 years. And we've finally gotten it to where it's flat, and I don't think we should be investing more money in rec. There's lots of other things in this town that I put in money before I put it into rec.
See, but
Now, it's nothing to do, I know it sounds like I'm picking on you. It's not. I just don't think, I think as a town, we've got to question what we're doing.
But I think rec, as we've said, serves more than just the town. It serves the resort and serves what Watervilla is.
Yeah, but
No, I understand what you're saying.
we'll get Lincoln's budget, which has got 3 times the number of participants as ours, and I'll guarantee you they're not spending $150,000 a year on
Yeah,
rec.
I understand, but we're in a unique situation where our participation, when it really drops. We don't have the huge numbers to play with.
Well, why is Holderness different?
This Holderness isn't a resort community.
It's not a resort community?
No, not with large.
It's a summer
It's
town.
a summer town.
It's a summer town,
Okay,
so
there's
that's not a resort community.
There's a
Yeah,
difference
in the
between.
wintertime. There's hardly a car that goes through there.
No, their
Winter
programs are totally different. They set them up for support of both of those instances. I think both of those departments set up to support the community. They're the child care like it was for me in
But how
Farmington.
do they do it at $30,000 a year, Mark? That's my question. Why are we?
They don't have a rec director there hardly at all.
That's you see, I'm struggling
And do
with
they have
why are
after-school
we spending
programs?
$150?
They don't have after school programs.
Holderness?
They're not doing everything that we're doing. This vacation week, Holderness Rec won't be running.
No, I know it, obviously.
But there's a lot of stuff
Well,
that in the additions that we do.
Find me some examples of towns that are doing what we're doing.
Okay, we'll
I mean,
look
because
around.
I went and
But
started
I can
looking at
actually
ones
get
in
some of
Mass,
that
big
information
towns,
pretty
rich
easily. No,
towns.
there's
Yeah.
a survey out there that.
I mean, I go to Winchester, Mass, spends nothing. I go to, they spend nothing. They set it up as a separate corporation, and it has to generate enough revenue to pay for itself.
Right, we can set up an enterprise fund if that's what you want. I mean,
I just
we've
want to
never looked at that.
keep the deficit at 150 and under. I'm willing to support that. I'm struggling with supporting more.
I
That's all I'm
understand.
saying.
Okay.
And I can't tell you how to get it down. You have to look at it and come back and say, here's how you get it. And I'm just one, because the other two, as far for all I know, I'm willing to support it going over. I'm struggling with it. That's all.
I'm willing to keep it reasonable. I'm willing to take into account what goes on and the difficulties in trying to maintain here. We are dealing with so many whims of guest fluctuations, second homeowner fluctuations, participants, and we still have to keep our baseline numbers up. We still have to keep the doors open, and you can't keep the door open with one person. Like we were talking about the numbers of people for Kids Night Out. Where Kids Night Out, there used to be a 35 person waiting list, and now you're canceling it some weekends.
Well, but
But
I
that could
go back
change.
and
It could
old-timers,
change on a snap, though.
the
That's
old
where-
timers will tell me, you know how the rec department started here in this town? It was volunteers. All volunteers. We didn't have anybody.
Well, if, moving forward, you know, Rachel, maybe you wanna post the second position and a full-time position and just see what comes up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll support going to a full-time position, but I will not support coming next year for a budget that's gonna show 170,000 deficit. Because what I'll fight for then, and I'll go to budget hearings, get it down to 150. Keep it there. I don't care if you gotta drop programs, you gotta raise rates, fine. Figure out how to do it. But I'm not willing to spend 100, because it'll go to 200. But that's just me. We'll let the citizens decide what they want to do with it.
So, you know, we
I guess I'm just a little nervous to advertise a position that doesn't in fact exist.
I
don't-
can't. You guys, I would really like you guys to just give me the budget guidance that you want, like Bill says. If it's make it $150,000 subsidy from the tax rolls, and that's what you need to do, I can work with that. We'll put that together. I can't, Mike, though, work with make it reasonable. I can't do
Mark,
that.
I understand. I'm just trying to.
And my nervousness is you have all been very clear that you don't want me adding full-time positions.
Right.
Okay? I told Margaret that I would not add a full-time position because the board's guidance to me was to not do that in any case, in
Right.
any department.
Right.
Okay? If you're telling me that I can put a full-time position back in here,
I'll let you. I
Then
will agree
I
to
will.
put a full-time position on the basis of what I've heard is I cannot find any qualified people at all.
right now we cannot get an applicant that is qualified to fill the position. If,
who will come in here
Who will-
and work part-time
Right.
for no benefits.
That's
But the only
Yeah.
condition I'll put on it is you're going to have to make it 1 year probationary, because come next year, if we can't find any other way to get the number back to the 150 number, I'm gonna recommend, and just me personally, I'll stand up at a budget hearing and recommend to the town that we're spending too much money. I'm back to what the rec committee, that committee that studied this once before said, look, we're just, and I keep referring back to what they said, we're just slowly creeping up and up and up and up and up. The town is
When
not
was that?
creeping
I
up and up and up.
I'm asking because I don't know. When was that committee?
It was about
formed?
4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I was not part of that committee then.
Sure, they interviewed you.
Yeah, this was Kevin Morse.
Kevin Morse and,
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
it was a
Pretty-
group that we sent out from
Yeah,
the select
right.
committee to take a look at everything that was going on and give us some recommendations. And they gave us
That was
a
like a
whole range
town.
of
Was
recommendations.
that town?
Right.
Okay, it wasn't
Yeah.
rec.
It
No,
wasn't
it wasn't
rec,
rec
no,
specific.
no,
There
no.
was townwide.
No. But what I'm wondering, if we go forward with permission for the full-time position, does it not make sense to not only advertise the full-time, but advertise the second part-time in case we see something come up that says maybe we can make this work as 2 part-time positions?
Yes, I
don't have
would
a
like to
problem
do
with
that.
Yeah.
I think, I am, and I've shared this with Margaret and Rachel,
Mhm.
I am concerned in the long run going from the 68 hours down to the 40 hours. And I know that if we get a qualified person, that we will be okay. And Rachel and the other
Mhm.
qualified person can run it. The problem is if one person gets sick or there is an injury or
Mhm.
whatever, then you don't have the backup. So if we go with the 2 part-timers and we have those additional available hours and the people available like we planned
Mhm.
through the budget process,
Mhm.
we have that backup.
Mhm.
And I'm a lot more comfortable with that, but we can't find the qualified
No.
people to do that.
Well,
So
we haven't advertised the program coordinator youth, right? We've only advertised the adult teen at this
Right,
point.
but
in
as you
time.
remember,
Yeah.
all of those applicants, I think, kind of thought that they would be programming.
youth,
Youth,
not
so-
adults.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll,
So,
Rachel and I will work through this. We will, if it's all right to, are you okay with the $4,700? That's my estimate.
That'd
Probably-
get you to about
That would
150.
get me, well, I know,
Yeah.
and you're right, Bill,
Yeah.
and I realize that we're gonna have to work to either cut down the expenses
Or raise the revenue.
raise the revenue,
Right,
and we're gonna have to keep it at the 150,
right.
and that's what we will shoot for December 31st of
Right.
this year.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Okay.
we'll put in the $4,700, and we'll go
Yep.
from there. All right. And
So
we'll advertise a
advertising
full-time position. Yes.
I can give you the write-up.
Right now, Public Works wish they went first because we're right back to full-time positions again.
No, I figured you'd waste all your ammo on
Right.
Alright.
92,000 for another plow, Jim, no problem. As long as we
So,
can go
what's
home.
the situation of road salt? I saw it was an issue. We're okay.
Marilyn had a question.
I'm sorry. Marilyn.
I wanted to make a comment on rec department, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I think that I have been involved in a lot of discussion. It's really, truthfully, ad nauseum about rec department, and I think everybody is really pleased with Rachel and the changes that she's made, and that's the first thing everybody says is they don't want this to come down on her in any way because they think she's a golden girl. I think that people generally agree with Bill that the rec department budget is way too large for the small size of this town, and they understand that it's a resort town and maybe we're catering a little bit differently than other towns would do it. But as a positive solution, because I like to practice solution-focused therapy, I think there are a lot of people who would be willing to volunteer, to man things, to help them not be there, the extended hours, like in the evening when the groups come in and play pickleball. They're adults, they're competent, they're town owners, and they say that, you know, we could organize and you could give us a key and we could save the rec department the money and we would get enough people on the list so that we could keep it running without having to incur the cost of having 2 more people there for Rachel.
I think it's a good suggestion.
So that movement is definitely afoot, and a lot of people are saying that they'll do it. Our library is volunteer, and it runs really, really well. And I lived in Weston for many years, Weston, Massachusetts, and I was on the board of Weston Community Children's Association, which is known as WCCA, and that's exactly what they did. They had an army of volunteers staffing the rec department, and that's one of the most, it's the Beverly Hills of Massachusetts.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's no reason we couldn't do that and save the town money and get more people involved in being responsible.
If you read the annual report I read the annual report out of Lincoln and read I read the section they wrote on the rec department. I don't know if they really do it. They imply that they use a lot of volunteers to cover some of the programs. And I think it's an excellent suggestion to look at the possibility, particularly of things like pickleball, you know, using volunteers rather than having to keep 2 part-timers for an extra hour and a half to watch that. Rather than charging for that, maybe we could have a volunteer corps of people that'd be willing to be there and supervise that, what's going on.
Absolutely, because we're there anyway. So
You're there anyway,
if
right.
you want to entrust somebody or you know, as a trustee, have the key to coordinate with Rachel. I don't know if there's any liability issues not having.
Well, we'd have to
staff
work
person
through it.
there.
Right. But there were apparently other towns that found a way to do it. I mean, yeah, right.
Well, along those lines, there's organizations that will come up and instruct for free. The Trout Unlimited and
Right.
doing fishing instructions. I'm pretty sure Fish and Game does archery instructions.
Mm-hmm.
Pemmy Fish and Game, the local club may come up and, I mean, there's possibilities of getting some instructors for free.
Ah, thank you.
We'd like that.
We like that.
So we can help if you let us know, or if you want us to come to you for a proposal. I'm proposing right now that we at least take over with the hours that aren't normal hours, that are difficult hours for them, like 5 to 7, so that they can go home and have their dinner and have time with their families, and
Right.
we can staff those if you want to have a trustee with a key. And we already really have this email system in place with a huge list of people for pickleball, so it really wouldn't be much work. So I don't know what the
Okay.
legal issue is.
All right. Thank you. Road salt. Do we have enough road salt?
We do for now.
Good. I state is running low on road salt. When I saw this, my new reaction is whether you can't. I understand it's pretty hard to get, right?
Yeah, it's it's a low seat.
Yeah.
Rumor had it last week that road salt was low in supply.
Yeah.
I was assured today by our supplier that that is not exactly the case.
Okay.
What they are doing is they are prioritizing more closely who's getting the salt. And because salt's going to different places, because other people's supplies are stretched thin, then it may take it a little longer to get to us. But they say we're good as far as municipality and the state goes. So local contractors have been contacting me because they cannot get it.
Right.
And they wanted to know, are we going to sell it to them? And I said no.
Okay. The case of these are contractors that are serving condominium associations. If you, just using your experience, had to prioritize areas where where salt is really essential, and if something has to go without, would it be the driveways of the condo associations that really could go without?
Pretty much.
Okay.
There are several areas that where their driveways intersect our roads,
Right.
which should actually be treated. Those
Okay.
would be just for safety and for ease of egress and access.
And could you do that where you felt that it was necessary?
I discussed that with Mark, and that would not.
No, we're not going, we can't do private property
Right,
where it
but-
comes into the road, but we'll do our road.
We'll do our road.
Yeah. And then if there's an emergency, like I wrote
Right.
it here, if there's an emergency situation
Okay.
with ambulance or fire that
Then
need
we'll
to
be
get
able to do
someplace, then we'll go in and salt whatever we have to, like we did at Noon Peak
Mm-hmm.
this past week. We went in and sanded because the emergency personnel needed
Right.
the
Right.
assistance. So, but
I mean, it was. I'm just curious. I mean, how you at the point in time they need the assistance, and I'm assuming that it's too late to put the salt and the sand down.
oh no,
Well,
we
no,
went
we
up
could.
and
We
sanded.
could. I mean, if push came to shove, now that the new truck is here
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think
and
I've
it is
seen
in service.
Yeah, right.
I mean, so now we have the capability of being able to carry. I mean, we can keep a sand salt mixture on one truck and just have it ready at all times. So
Yeah, we will help if in an emergency situation, but I think what we've been asked is, can you take care of us on a recurring,
Right. They
regular
want
basis?
to. They want to.
And we can't.
We can't
do
be their
that.
supplier.
We can't be their supplier. It's not. We're
Right.
not allowed to do that under the state bid.
Right.
No, I understand.
And,
yeah.
and we should just make it clear to them that we're not going to do
Yeah.
that. They can't come up here and get what they need.
No.
They're gonna have to find it. But if there's an emergency situation, we will take care of the town.
Step in
Right.
and help
Absolutely. I mean, if
An
we had a big ice
emergency
storm,
would be, like he says, we get to the situation where the intersection of a road is dangerous.
oh yeah,
In
we'll
the
make
opinion
sure
of
it's
the police.
not. Yeah, we'll
Okay,
make sure it's
that's
not.
fine. All right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm okay with that.
And I think this whole thing will just sort of work itself out by the
Yeah.
end of the month.
Hopefully. This could be the winter that never went away, right?
It seems to be so far.
Although it's, you see, I was just watching something the other night. They were saying people forget how bad some of these storms used to be.
Oh.
There was a blizzard in, I don't know, it was 1880 or something in the west that dumped 100 feet of snow. And they say people think today,
Right.
4 or 5 feet is a lot.
And we're talking about, if as Jim will continue to talk to our supplier, and if we can't get salt we're gonna have to cut back, and people
Okay.
are just gonna have to understand that there isn't any more,
Yeah,
and
there's-
eventually it may come to that.
There's ways to do that, so.
So,
Anything else, public works? Everything's okay?
nope, nothing. right
Everything
now.
bolts onto the truck, right?
Yes,
Nice and
Did you
easy,
see
no major surprises.
no,
Surprise?
it's,
That's a good word, new word.
it's, working out quite well, as a matter of fact, so,
Who drives it?
everybody.
I think I saw you mostly the first couple of
It
days.
would be you.
Oh, he won't get out of it. He didn't get out of it for the first week. Don't let him kid you.
No, I spent the first 15 hours in it.
It's just got heated seats and all that stuff?
No, no.
Satellite.
No, if I known I was gonna spend 15 hours in it the first time, that truck would have cost another $25,000-$30,000.
All right. Okay, we got a permit for a sign application?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming on, I don't think there's anything else. Public safety, is there anything you want to go over?
No,
Is there any update? There's two things people always keep asking me. There's nothing on stone, right?
no, we've asked the U.S. Attorney. We haven't.
But
got
we will have
anything
something
back.
for the meeting, a new letter.
Yes.
We just have to have something.
Yes.
Is there anything reasonably, I mean, just input that we could write to try to put some pressure on the U.S. Attorney? Somebody suggested we write to the Attorney General and say, of the United States, and say, what are you doing?
I
You know?
think he.
We've
works for
contacted
the
our senators in
Attorney
both
General.
cases here, both senators.
Why don't we do that before the meeting? Send
I
letters out to both
think that
senators
this has
and the
been
Attorney
going
General.
on now for a year and a half.
Okay.
Could they just check in with the
Mhm.
U.S. Attorney's Office, and you get the feeling that they've just walked away from this.
Yeah. That'd be good. At least if we have these letters that we've met our obligation to try to get information.
And there are definitely people out there that feel a deal has already happened.
Oh, I've heard a deal's
Yeah.
been made. They're
Oh
all
yeah,
set,
because
they're-
Stone says I'm off the hook. I know people quote. He hasn't said it to me, but people quote him as saying,
Mhm.
"Well, I'm in North Carolina. I'm off the hook."
Okay.
The 10 burglaries. Is it still at 10?
Yes, it is
That
still
we
at
found.
10, as far as I know. I
And
talked to Chris
nothing-
this morning. They're working on the case, but they do not have anything.
And nothing since that week.
Nothing since that
Great.
week
Okay.
has happened. No, there has been no. I have had a couple of people comment that they see the PD around. You know, they've increased their patrol times and they're a lot more visible around the condo associations, and so.
I know. I was talking to the proprietor at 123 Lock and Key,
Mhm.
and he says it is. He said his phone rang off the hook, but he said, you know, looking on the positive side, he says you're nothing compared to Meredith and Molten Borough and those places. He said it is horrible.
Oh, really? Break-ins?
Well, to the point where they're stealing copper plumbing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there's more value
Right.
in the copper pipes
Right.
than there is
In a
in the
flat
flat screen TV.
Yeah.
And those they can go in and have reasonable assurance nobody's coming in for the duration. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah. But that would really be.
that would be magic coming up to you.
Yeah. You turn on, you look under the sink, there's nothing.
All the piping is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so other than that, they're still working on the investigation of the fire and wrapping that up, and so.
Yeah, and there is, well, okay, Chris is great. He know. I mean, there are a lot of people. There's going to probably be some suits over that as to whether that fireplace was properly done or not. But
Yeah.
I have every confidence that Chris knows how to stay out of the middle of that.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Sign permit.
I have one thing actually.
Oh, yes,
From
administration.
the ZBA.
Yes.
They have from their minutes, their draft minutes from Sunday night. They're asking the Board of Selectmen to appoint Jean Mullen to replace Bruce as a full member on the ZBA.
I'll
Jean
make
is
a
now
motion.
an alternate.
I will make a motion to appoint Jean Mullen as a full member of the ZBA.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was all I had.
Signs. Somebody wants a sign? Barkaloo?
Yeah, it's a real estate sign for Bonnie's house for
Open
a couple
house.
hours.
Open house.
Are they going
Wanna
to
sell
be
them the
there?
old
Is
one?
somebody going to be there when the sign is up?
We just received this via email,
Email.
so
But I think it's a couple hours every day of the week.
it is
It's just going to be the 2 weekends.
the 2 weekends,
weekends.
from
The days.
12:30 to 4:30, and they will put the sign up and take it down on the same day.
Okay.
It's the same
I'm gonna
size.
make a motion, I'll make a comment and then make a motion. I think we should give them the same feedback that if you're gonna have an open house sign, there has to be somebody there
Mhm.
during the period that can reasonably represent the seller and the seller's interest. I mean, you know, you can't just have an open house with nobody in there that can do anything. Why would you wanna let people in anyway? But, I don't know. But other than that, as long as they agree to that, I'll make a motion to approve their petition for a sign.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think it says that in our town regulations.
It does.
It
That's
does.
why
There has
we're
to be
reading.
a sales agent
There needs to
present.
be a sales agent present.
Yes,
right.
but we took a very loose
We took a loose
of that.
interpretation of the sale, somebody who's capable of representing the seller.
Yes.
Bond paperwork.
We do not have it yet. The bond council is still working on it. We'll have it at the
What's
next
one
meeting.
But Margaret, we do need your signature on this. This
Yes.
was for the approval.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about recreation department budget and warrant for town meeting.
Well,
The next
how?
month.
Well, no, no, no.
No,
We-
by
we
this
gotta
Friday,
have-
right?
We gotta have everything done by Friday. So, I have the warrant. I have a couple of numbers now that I need to change, but I'm going to. Is the warrant the way that it is in your packet, minus the numbers for rec, okay with you?
What did you do with the library numbers? Did you change that?
The library numbers moved out of contingency and
Right.
into the library line.
Okay. That was the only question that I had.
The I didn't have a problem with the way this was set up. Let me just take one last look here. Why don't we go on and then I'll come back. If I got anything, I'll bring it up. Any correspondence?
No, I do want to give you an update on okay, I have questioned Department of Revenue Administration on the changes to the first half tax bill. There is no law which allows us to alter the first half bill. It has to be 1/2 of the previous year's rate.
So we can't get an
We
exception.
cannot, there's no provision
to do it. Okay.
Mark Nieder is working on our USPAP report and compliance with the DRA requirements. I talked to his office just before the meeting and they said that they will have it, they should have it done, they're planning to have it done before your meeting on the 26th. We have told the WVRA, I talked to Mike Soma following the last meeting, and we've informed the WVRA that we included the $1,620 in the budget request for 2014, and we're carrying $5,800.
Did he agree with you on that? Did you?
Well,
did you
no, he
find it?
doesn't agree with us on it, but
It's found money to him.
it was found money to
Okay.
him. So they are aware that you have funded $7,500 total. 5880.
Meaning we have an amount
5880.
in our coffers for them of the they
For
can,
the
they can send them
$7,500.
$7,500.
Yeah. Okay. So those were the 3 action items that I had off of the last meeting.
Okay?
Did I forget anything, Sharon? Did I
No, those
forget
are the three.
anything?
Okay.
Board?
Nope.
All right, can
Oh,
I,
excuse me. Oh, go ahead.
are we at board concerns now before we come back to the budget? Is this what if,
Yes, board concerns and directives, yeah.
I wasn't able to make it to the school budget hearing. Did anybody go?
I did not.
Okay, and what is the issue with their, that personnel issue?
Well-
What did they come back as?
Basically, their budget is up 45%, $45,000.
$46,000.
$46,000 from last year's budget. That being said, okay, the way that they got there was that there was $112,000 in last year's budget for the security and other building improvements. You remember that?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that goes to zero this year.
And
And
they're
instead of the budget going
down
down,
112.
okay, it's up 45,000
Plus
over
the
last year.
112.
So it's up 150,000.
Well, it's
160.
it's more than that.
Yeah,
It's
even
more
more.
than that. So
Because there are some other cuts that are also.
right. So there's puts and takes, but the bottom line is that their budget is up 45,000 from
And-
last year.
They have
With-
no capital. They have no capital budget.
They have no capital budget.
Their
this
all
year.
their budget is their operating.
Is all
budget.
operating.
So
So
And-
last year you had a budget that was $45,000 less, but it included over $112,000 in capital expenses.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
What's the big change?
There are several of them. Mr. Poole is retiring.
Right.
Under the No Child Left Behind
Oh,
law,
they've got to hire new
they are
teachers.
required to have people who
Yeah.
have highly
Now I got you.
qualified certification. The ability to do that for 7th and 8th graders in 4 subjects is practically non-existent. They have been looking for people for 3 years that have all 4 subjects.
Someone told me they had someone.
Not in all 4 subjects.
Okay.
And what happened was that Mr. Poole and the others that were already there were grandfathered.
Father,
Right.
Okay? So what they are looking at is hiring 2 teachers and getting rid of, what is it, 1.5 assistant
roughly
and
1.2.
yeah,
The assistant and an aide.
right. So they're hoping they're going to be able to find a highly qualified teacher in language arts and social studies and another one in math and science. And their school, as they described it, is basically top heavy. Almost half the kids are in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They did do a look at what would it cost to send the 7th and 8th graders to Plymouth, and it was more expensive than spending this
Yeah.
140,000. Is that 140?
157,000.
150. He remembers the numbers better
Based
than I
on
do.
current census.
Yes.
Yeah.
In,
Based
in
on
future.
average.
No, on their anticipate what they know their census will be starting in September of this year.
How many
Right.
kids do we have going
What
to the high
they've
school? Do
projected.
we know next?
11.
There are 11
And
kids.
that's
Yeah.
the
That's
other thing. That
Yeah.
was another
That's
big
$150,000.
That
increase.
was another
That
big
was another
increase
100
because there's 9 kids graduating
Right.
this year.
Right.
And we're putting 11 more back in.
Right.
So there's an increase of 2.
So there's
Right.
7 to...
Andrew will be leaving the high school if things go well.
How many kids are in the 7th to 8th?
20, I think,
Yeah,
is what
it's
they
really.
said. It's pretty top heavy.
Is it always traditionally top heavy?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
And
From
they-
my time on the board.
They just got the
In other
number.
words, kids come
Yeah.
in the 4th and 5th grade.
Yes, that's right. They don't find the parents, and she
Right.
addressed this specifically. Gail said that they don't find parents coming up until the kids are in the 4th and 5th grades.
Yeah.
And we're not, and I'm assuming that if we have someone, when they did that study, that if we had a non-resident
Right.
where we let them come to school here, that we didn't assume we would pay their cost to go to Plymouth, did we?
No.
No, we'd set them on their own.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
The other big, there's a warrant article in there for 67.
Well, but that's separate from the
That's
46,000.
That's separate from the 46.
The other big thing was the custodial position.
Yeah, the
They-
custodial position, they're going with full-time. They are eliminating some of the outside contractors that they used.
There was a
Um,
$30,000 decrease with the contracts because they have
Right.
several different contracts.
Like what
that,
is it?
Well, they have
Not
a
the gym refinishing,
No.
is that?
no, that's us.
That's us.
Okay.
That's us. They do a sidewalk and emergency exit because they've got to go all the way out
Yeah.
in the back in the woods. They have a contract for that for snow removal. They have a contract for groundskeeping. They have a contract for the summertime cleaning and painting that they eliminated. There were several of them, and I think it came to like $32,000
Yeah,
So it's
something like
or
that.
something like that. The total package cost was 62,
Minus
and then
the-
you had the minus 30, so it
Yeah.
was about a
That's-
$30,000
Okay.
increase.
Right.
So when you add it,
But that
all up-
30,000 is or is not part of the 118 or the 150 increase.
yes, it is.
Yeah,
part-
it is
Oh, okay.
part
It
There was
is
something
part
about a
of it.
warrant article you mentioned.
Well,
Well,
now
that's coming
in
up.
separate, separate from all of this is a deficit appropriation warrant article
for this year.
for this year because they budgeted for 3 special education students and they ended up with 8. So they were forced to pay because they have no choice
Right.
but to do it.
Right.
And so their budget, when they ended their budget on June 30, they had a deficit of $65,000.
Right.
They put the warrant article in. If the warrant article is voted down, the warrant article will show up again in 2015,
Or
and it'll be a non-negotiable, and DRA will tax us for it whether we pass it or not. So it's really a non-negotiable.
Right.
so where does this warrant article show up?
It's
It's
in
a
the
separate-
it's in there. It's a
But
separate
it's-
warrant article
So
in there.
when is this? But when is it voted on? Is my question.
School district meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a separate school district meeting?
Yeah. There is.
Yeah. Yeah, usually the day
It's
before.
usually
It's the night
Monday.
before.
The
It's Monday.
The night
and then-
before ours.
No, 2 nights before us.
2 nights before.
Monday the 9th is their meeting.
Right.
If
then
the
we have
budget
the
gets
11th.
turned down, what's the
We
provision?
have it on the 11th? Aren't we on
Where's
Tuesday?
that?
Oh,
the
I'm sorry,
12th?
Tuesday. I'm thinking
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
I'm
all
sorry.
right.
Yes,
It's
the
on
night
Monday.
before. I'm
I
sorry.
just have to get my bearings
Yes,
now
the
because I
10th
thought I
and the
completely lost
the 10th
it.
and the
All
11th.
right, gotcha.
I think if schools are different than the town, if their budget gets turned down, they can arbitrarily just set a budget?
No. I don't know what they would do because we're not an SB2 town. In an SB2 town, the official ballot towns where they vote by paper in the voting booths, if the budgets get turned down, either the town or the school budget gets turned down, you revert to last year's budget. In our case, if the budget were to get turned down, we have no money to operate. We have nothing
Okay,
in either case.
fascinating. Was there much?
No, it
Discussion?
was very lightly attended.
Was it?
There was
Yeah.
5 people besides
Yeah.
the 2 of us.
And,
I
and
couldn't,
Mark and
the HO
I,
problem, I couldn't find a copy of the budget.
yeah, and
They handed it out.
They
at the
handed
meeting.
it out.
Right,
at
well,
the meeting, yeah.
are they required to have the budget available prior to the meeting?
You'd have to ask the superintendent. I don't know.
I mean, I find it frustrating that
Yeah.
if I could have read the budget, I would have gone.
there are also.
But I'm not gonna
yeah.
go and have somebody hand me a budget document that I can't review.
Yeah, there are also 2 new players, which
Yeah.
may be part of the issue.
What do you mean by 2 new players?
Well, the people that we normally see at the school
Yeah.
budget meeting from the SAU, that's changed.
Oh, so it wasn't
There's a new
Kathy-
business administrator and there's a new assistant superintendent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So there were
I'll have
the
to
2
send
new
Mark
players
Halloran a
there.
letter. I have to send him an email and just ask him a question.
Yeah,
Is the
that's a
school
good
board
question.
required to make their budget available prior to the day of the review?
But as Mark said, other than he and I, and we asked a lot of the questions,
No.
there weren't a whole lot of other people there. And of course, they're hanging their hat on the fact that the budget in total has only gone up $46,000. Okay, and again, that's because a number of these lines were zeroed out.
No,
There's no capital
Right.
expense there's the expense that was taken out that used to be done by a subcontractor that they're now going to have their full-time person do. They did give us assurances that their full-time person was also going to do the rec department, you know, so.
All right, and do they think
And
they're
that
going
it's
to?
year-round.
And do you think that personnel will stay over there?
I
Yeah,
don't
has that
really
been talked
know.
about yet?
I've talked to him on 3 different occasions, and he hasn't
Giving you an
committed
answer.
either way.
All right.
He said he's thinking both ways. So,
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just not. It wasn't as.
What
open.
is their budget? Do you know?
1,250,000 somewhere.
So we're
around there.
looking at almost a 10% increase.
Yeah, it's about a 10%.
And have they correctly now provided the special education
Yeah,
funds for the
and
number of
the
people?
special ed numbers are up again because
Well,
they're up,
have
I
to be.
think, to 11.
Mm-hmm.
They now have 11 students
Wow.
instead of the 8
And where are the
that they're budgeting for.
How are they classifying? Well, I'm sure they've got a classification program
It's-
for the
it's-
special
they
ed.
don't
Well,
have any
they have
say,
an
right?
individual education program for
IEPs,
each child.
right.
So
Yeah.
each and so they don't know the costs until they negotiate. Basically, there's a negotiation process for that IEP, and each one is custom to that
Yeah.
child.
You know,
And some people find that it's very positive. for
Right.
their
Right.
kids.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but like I told Margaret, the special ed and the high school tuition, the frustrating thing about them is they affect the budget
Yes,
so much.
it's a
And
huge percentage.
It is such a large percentage, and then you get the down years, and it looks
Yeah.
great, and the school board doesn't have to do anything, and their budget's down
yeah,
20%.
each student
because-
is a percent.
That's right, and
Yeah.
so you go through these wild fluctuations, and we're just in.
I'm
an
just
up
struggling with.
year.
We're at a crossroads with Poole retiring,
Oh yeah.
and do we really want to continue to run 7th and 8th grades here?
Well, the cost
that's the
comparison,
question.
the cost comparison that they did is that we could spend 140 or 150,000 on 2 highly qualified teachers for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, or you could spend 250,000 sending them to Plymouth
Yeah.
Yeah, the savings.
because
And then
we
we-
have to provide transportation.
Right.
We provide transportation, and the tuition number that Plymouth charges you
Yeah.
is out of our hands completely. They can
Mhm.
charge us whatever they
Right.
want.
Sure.
And we pay the IEP costs on top,
Right.
so you don't save anything really on the
And
special
then we'd have a
ed.
20 student school again.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't get rid of much of the overhead.
No, I
You
understand
only
that
get
by
rid of
having the
those
20
2 teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, everything else stays
Yeah.
the same. So
No.
I don't. It's hard. I didn't
Yeah.
like it when I was on the school board.
Yeah.
So
The day's really going, huh?
yeah, he's finally not going to show up for school on the first day of school in
After
September.
27 years.
27 years.
Yeah.
Okey doke.
They'd be better off hiring them to come and just sit, right, to meet
Yeah.
the qualifications,
Yeah.
and then have
Yeah.
somebody else teach.
Well, no, not the way the retirement system is going right now. I'll tell you what. So
All right. Well, I'm sorry I missed it, but and do you have a copy of the budget?
yeah, I'll put it in your box or
Thank you.
PDF it for you.
Right.
My only concern with this is with $100,000 for them, roughly, right? The 60 and the 40, so say 110,000, and then our 300,000. I mean the overall impact
On the
again
tax
in
bill is gonna be-
December
Yeah.
is exacerbated that much more.
Right.
Mhm.
So you're talking about $1.30, $1.25, in December.
Yeah. No,
And we
I
need to just make people aware of.
That assumes the county is.
Well, and then that assumes
Yeah.
that the county's flat and that our school,
Right.
our state portion of the education money doesn't change. So,
Now, can we take fund balance middle of the year and apply it, or do
Yeah,
we have
you
to
can
do that
You
one
apply
do
at a
the
it
time?
tax rate
before
setting,
tax
but-
rate setting.
Okay, so we can look at that, but it's not going to be that much of a
No,
help.
it's not going to help us that
not
much.
without really dipping into our fund balance
Right. Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is what it am.
Well,
So we'll have to find a vehicle after the meetings to communicate
Right.
that to people so that we have the final numbers and, you know, we can
Yeah.
make a good estimate on what that actual tax rate impact is.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So-
you should know right away. I
Oh,
mean,
we'll
it's
know
gotta
right
be
away.
sizable.
Yeah.
Well, it's $1.25.
Well, when you
It's-
add this, us and them together.
That's what I mean.
Well,
The
it's-
$400,000 is about $1.25, $1.30.
Ours is.
Every dollar is
Ours
$330,000.
is, no wait, ours is what, 300?
Ours is about 300.
And theirs is about
Theirs is about
46.
No, it's 100.
It's
The
67.
65 and the 46.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Special warrant article,
so
yeah.
it's, you know,
Yeah.
in the $1.20, $1.40 range.
Now, that is for the second half, assuming we stay flat in the first, or?
Yeah,
that's
all
not-
of that impact will be
No, the second half,
because
we
the
can't
second
put it
half
on
is
the
already
first
done.
half.
because we
Right.
can't put it on the first half.
Right. Mm.
Now, I'm going to call Stephen Hamilton, who is the supervisor of our DRA contacts, and I'm gonna let him know that Michelle did what I asked her, and I'm gonna ask him, I'm gonna tell him the size of the impact and see if the commissioner has any flexibility. There's nothing in the law that we can see that he does, but it may be that
Okay.
the commissioner can make an exception for us, and we'll have to see
Yeah.
if there is any flexibility, because that's just such a
A huge
big
hit.
impact for us. So,
Mark, you asked the question before. I have no problem with the draft warrant article now that I went back over and looked at it.
okay.
Let's just talk about one issue. If we're going to add the $4,700 into rec,
Mhm.
should we put the 2,000? You're gonna have to change
Oh.
the totals anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna change the totals.
So now, do we want to put the amount we had back in contingency and put 2,000 in the library, or I guess it's hardly worth it?
Well,
Well, you were going to take the library out of contingency.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
I'm changing it anyway. I mean, I can do it either way that you want. The
Is there a
$2,000
preference either way?
doesn't make any
No.
difference.
Not for $2,000.
You do whatever you want.
Okay, all right. Good.
Okay. And then we have a domicile request.
All right.
With that, we need to go. I'm sorry. You
Yeah,
have something else?
No,
we
they
need to go
just-
into non-public. Thank
Yeah.
you, Marilyn, for
Thanks,
coming in your
Marilyn.
comments.
Hank, Marilyn?
I